Hey guys, Sly here, and before we get into this video, I just want to let you guys know that this is actually a re-upload of a part of a series that I do on my Twitch channel called the Sly Army Tier Lists, where we pretty much rank a bunch of just random topics that I'm personally interested in. And so, because of that, these opinions are not set in stone for how I feel about in the current day. And so if you guys want a more updated version of that, feel free to either check out the DeviantArt link down below or tune in on my Twitch that will also be in the description, or check out my Discord where I occasionally post some more updated versions of how I feel about certain topics. And so do keep that in mind. And also make sure to check out the description of the video itself for the timestamps for the particular topic that is presented here. But in any event, I hope you guys do at least enjoy. I recommend you guys listen to this as either like a podcast form or as just something to play in the background. But in any event, hope you guys at least enjoy. Hey guys, Sly here, and welcome back to honestly kind of a long-awaited episode of the Sly Army Tier Lists. So we're finally doing another pretty big episode this time around. Granted, this one, unfortunately, is going to be another solo one. I do apologize for that. Don't worry. There are some tier lists that I have planned in the background for us to do that I'll be doing with potentially other people. So don't you fear. We'll be here with some more cool tier lists that I'm doing collaborations with. But anyways, we're back doing another music one. So obviously the last one that we did was the last official one that we did was the prog tier list. And well, the last one that we did in general was a redux of my emo tier list that I did back before, back in 2021, before I actually had the name branding change. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure to, freshen my updates on that particular list. And, well, this one's going to be somewhat of a linked tier list to that because we're going to be talking about pop-punk music. So get your dickies out and your your frosted tips. Okay, maybe that's more of a specific era pop-punk, but you get the point. We're going to be talking about some pop-punk bands. Which I'm pretty excited to talk about because, admittedly, this one's actually not going to be too long because I still have a lot of bands. Don't get it twisted. I have close to 100 bands as I typically do, as I have down below. But most of these we've already talked about before in other tier lists. So, but I'm still gonna give out my updated thoughts on a few of these, especially since some of these bands I have not talked about in years for you guys. So I'm gonna make sure that that pretty much gets updated. But also, just as a reminder, all of my old tier lists have been thoroughly uploaded and updated. There's some that I definitely do want to see if I can work on trying to update a little bit, but thankfully because of the updates that TierMaker has provided, I don't have to worry about too much stuff, as far as that. But that would be greatly appreciated if you guys check out these lists. I try to make sure that I update them as much as I can with as much accurate information as I possibly could give, or really just as much as I could in that one particular topic. So I would greatly appreciate you guys checking out these old tier lists. It would help out a lot. But in any event, let's not kid ourselves because, well, we're going to be talking about pop-punk music. So, funny enough, pop-punk is surprisingly a genre that I haven't covered up until now, or at least directly. Indirectly, I've talked about plenty of pop-punk bands before. Hell, some of my favorite bands of all time are technically under the general banner of pop-punk. But what is pop-punk? Because, that might be a genre that a lot of people may not necessarily they've heard of it because, it's heard a lot by the youth, but not necessarily by, well, okay, maybe some older people, but it's generally more seen as a youth thing. So, for those who don't know, and or maybe not necessarily be in the know, pop-punk essentially are, well, it's in the name. They are basically a subgenre of punk music that incorporates pop and pop rock influences. It's a fusion genre, essentially. And that's generally how the stipulations are concerned when it comes to classifying something as pop punk. If it sounds like punk, but it's a bit more of an upbeat and has a rhythm to it, that's generally what pop punk music is. It started around the late 70s, funny enough, around when, actual punk music was really, the big thing, at least in places like the UK and in like New England and stuff like that, and even the West Coast. But it never really garnered traction until one particular band in the early 90s made it very popular. If you guys know, you know. But as far as like, pop punk as we know it, it was a slow but steady development that happened over the course of several decades. And, well, of course, as we all know, pop punk music is, well, still very popular to this day. It's one of those genres where it's like, yes, you can generally like define an era for like, whenever it was popular. But if I'm going to be honest, there's a reason why I haven't really covered pop punk. Similar to the prog tier list, it's partially because there really wasn't like a full-on era for pop punk per se, especially since there were different types of pop punk that have existed over the decades. And of course, this gets into the subgenres, or not really subgenres, but just kind of subcategories of pop punk that have existed over the past 4 to 5 decades at this point. And because of that, it's kind of hard to really like say a definitive era in which pop punk existed. You have to kind of split it up into eras. So, and that of course gets us into the subcategories, and this is where we get into a few things. But as far as like sub styles of pop punk goes, obviously there's a lot of the mainstream style. I guess, see, as far as like popular styles of pop punk, sorry, I keep repeating myself, but there's I basically defined it as being like 4 different categories. So first of all, you've got what I personally call power pop, essentially your most popular type of pop punk. So, your all-time lows, or your sorry for the background, or like what's another very, I guess all-time low is probably like the best example of that, where it's like, that is just straight up what they are known for, is that combination of pop punk and pop rock. So there's that. And then we have what is called emo pop, because, well, a lot of emo and pop punk bands tended to kind of cross over with each other's genres. Naturally, that subcategory existed. A lot of those bands we've already, talked about in our emo tier list, and we're going to be rehashing some of those in this particular list. So I would definitely recommend you guys check, our emo tier list if you want more, detailed stuff on those bands. Think like stuff like Fall Out Boy, or like Say Anything. Sorry, I was trying to think. Or like Motion City Soundtrack, bands like that. And then you've got your what I basically just call straight up pop bands that are just, pop punk. So I guess that's more power. Whatever. I guess more traditional pop punk would be, okay, here. The post-hardcore. Easy core. That's what I was trying to go for. Sorry. Yeah, easy core. Basically just pop punk bands that are either also hardcore or post-hardcore bands. Basically like A Day to Remember, or Story of the Year. Those would be like easy core bands, I would say. And then there's one more type of pop punk that you guys have to remember now. It's called ska punk. So basically, pop punk with saxophones. It's in the name. It's basically, you know, ska, basically like, you know, shitty jazz, or, you know, like sort of like offbeat jazz mixed with punk or pop punk. That was a very popular thing in the early, like in the mid to late 90s. We'll get into a few of those bands if you guys aren't familiar. Trust me, it is a very interesting sound, but it's a very distinct one nonetheless. So yeah, those I would generally define as like the main 4 types of pop punk. Power pop, again, the more, you know, just blatantly just straight up pop bands that just so happen to be doing some punk like stuff. Emo pop, so like all the emo bands that were trying to do pop punk as well. Easycore, which is essentially just like you know, bands that combined hardcore with pop punk. And then ska, so which is its own weird category. And of course, as always, I have the list of bands down here. Again, most of these we've already talked about, so this is actually going to be a pretty quick tier list as far as I'm concerned, because if I'm going to be honest, most of these, I haven't really changed my mind too much on some of these, but for the ones that I haven't talked about in years, obviously I'll get to that. But I did want to kind of bring up one more thing before we get into this list, and it's been something that unfortunately I thought I had addressed years ago, but I'm still getting people on, you know, whenever I do re-upload this onto YouTube. Guys, here's the thing. As far as genres go, there's only so many that I can cover. Because, you know, obviously we've covered metalcore and post-hardcore, though I'm probably going to redo those lists. I've done emo, I've done new metal, I've done grunge and post-grunge, and I've done prog, and obviously we're doing pop punk today. And then there's a few others that I like to do, pop rock and rap rock at some point. And then maybe like, you know, psychedelic baroque. That'd be an interesting one, though admittedly there's not many bands that, you know, do that. But here's the thing. Throughout this entire series, I have emphasized, and this has been something that I've stressed at the very beginning of the series too. This isn't something that's new. And I've even pointed this out in some of my lists. I am someone who tries to not necessarily make something smaller, but I try to make sure to like do a bit more of like a broad category for bands that I otherwise would not talk about. What do I mean by that? Meaning that I am someone who believes that obviously music genres exist, because, you know, you can't, like, especially when it comes to the rock scene, because there's so many bands out there that it would be impossible to just straight up just call them this type of, like, you know, thing, or, you know, like, they're just generally rock is what I'm trying to say. But here's the thing. I'm not someone who likes the idea of making a band a hyper-specific genre to where it just feels like splitting hairs. Because I'm bringing this up because I had comments on a few of my videos that I uploaded years ago, re-uploaded years ago, criticizing why I have certain bands in certain tier lists. Like, for example, I'm not going to specifically name names, but for example, on our grunge tier list 2 years ago, I put bands like Radiohead, Oasis, and Blur on there. But then, you know, even in the video, I pointed out that, like, yeah, people consider these bands Britpop. But guys, it's not really its own genre. Because here's the thing. A lot of those bands, and I'm giving this as an example, and I'll explain what I mean once we, like, but here's the thing. When I listen to those, you know, bands, either their sound 9 times out of 10 either sound like just straight up pop rock music, or it just sounds, if they start having a bit more distorted guitars, that's when it starts leaning into more hard rock or even grunge category or, territory. I'm someone who believes that your category should be a bit more, like, it should be, specific enough to where people can identify what style of music it is. But I'm not someone who believes that it should be specifically categorized as a full-fledged genre because of a slight difference that it has compared to other genres. To me, it just feels pretentious, and it also just feels like, we're splitting hairs to the point where it's just becoming a bit messy. It's actually, it ends up doing what, blatantly just saying, oh, every band is a rock band. It ironically just makes things messy again. We need to have that balance of having, genres categorized, and being loose enough to kind of, have a general idea of things. Which is why I'm using this list to classify what people would consider pop, like power pop, emo pop, easycore, and ska music into one tier list. Because here's the thing, I don't want to be doing an individual tier list on every single one of those like categories. And like, first of all, and B, frankly, and I've used this term pretty, frequently, I consider them bullshit genres. In the sense that, like, they don't have enough distinctions, at least in my opinion, to where they should be classified as a full-fledged new genre. A sub-style of another genre, yes. As its own genre, no. I know that's going to piss off some people whenever with this whole tangent. It's just, I just am kind of sick and tired of trying to explain this to people. You're not going to change my mind on this. I have explained this for years, and there's still people who just give me shit for that. If you don't like that, then you don't have to watch my streams. Go watch someone else. Go watch some, like, Anthony Fantano or Punk Rock NBA music, like, video. I am not someone who gives a shit about your minute specific genre. I'm not having that conversation with people. I mentioned that with so many of these tier lists at this point. I'm not going to repeat myself. And if there's still going to be people who are going to be salty about that, then just don't watch my videos. So, and don't be a dickhead by, like, spewing hate comments. Because, again, I had that recently. I'm not going to tolerate it. I'm just going to straight up delete and block you. That's just how it is. I'm someone who's just trying to be real and, leveling the playing field when it comes to what a band's generalized sound is like. So, it's not me trying to discredit anyone. Mostly. In some instances, I am, and I'm going to be blunt about that. But at least for the sake of the tier lists, it's just to make it easier on me so that I don't have to worry about working on, hundreds of other tier lists just dedicated to music alone. Because, as I've mentioned, and I've brought this up on other tier lists as well, there are just way too many goddamn tier lists, like way too many goddamn music genres out there. Yeah, look at this. This is just a mess. And that's not even going into rock. Look at this. Yeah, rock and metal. I don't have time to do, like, 200 tier lists on each and every individual, like, genre here. I'm someone who just wants to be a bit more generalized and just kind of go with the flow as far as, like, the vibe and what a band sounds similar to. So, having it specific enough to where it's a bit, it can, have, like, a contained amount of bands while being able to have, like, a ton of, like, bands in that category is the easiest way for me to do these tier lists. So I'm sorry I went on that tangent. It's just, and I'm probably gonna save that tangent as like its own separate VOD so that I can share it to people. But as someone who loves music, I have an entire CD collection right there, and I've been passionate about this shit since 2005, almost 20 years at this point, ever since I was a kid. As someone who's been going through that, I just find it way too pretentious and just messy when there's hundreds of genres listed here, even though a lot of them are just splitting hairs between each other. That's my point. You don't have to like that, but that's just how I do these lists. But I'm sorry to go on a high horse on that. It's just, I needed to explain that. So, but yeah, let's calm ourselves down here and just kind of, you know, rest ourselves a little bit, and let's get on with the pop punk list, which for the most part, I think most people are going to agree that the bands that are on this list, they're pop punk bands. I don't think anyone's gonna, like, you know, go after me for this anyways. So, especially since we're, you know, adding those. Oh, also, one more stipulation that I just kind of forgot. As far as, for those who are not familiar, how I classify a band to be a part of a genre is that either if they have 5 or more albums, like LPs, like albums, they have to like 3 of those albums have to be a specific genre for them to count as a part of the genre. If they only have 2 out of 5, I'm not going to count them. But if they have less than 5, then I would have to count them. I would have to count how, if the majority of their stuff is considered a part of the genre. So, yeah, for example, if a band has like only 3 albums, then basically one album, like 2 of those 3 albums would have to count as part of the genre. It's just to make it a bit easier to kind of get into this. And again, let me remind you that, like, at the end of the day, this is all just one man's opinion. If you disagree with me, that's completely fine. Again, I know I went on that whole tangent. It's just been something that's been bothering me for the past several years now, because music fans, unfortunately, are the worst. But let's not get ahead of ourselves on that. But you get the point. I'm just one guy. If you disagree with me, let me know in a not pretentious way, please. I'm not gonna handle that shit. But as far as like that's like, if you disagree, that's fine. Just, you know, write down and see where we disagree from there. But in any event, let's get on with the actual list. Which, like I said, we've already talked about most of these bands before, so this isn't actually going to be that like long of a stream. Because I'm just going to be repeating a lot of the same points I made before. So, and of course, yeah, and I pre-organized this to where, you know, I've got all the bands we've talked about in the first 4.5 rows, and then the last, you know, 2.5 rows are bands that we have not talked about. So, but of course, let's begin this. So, the first band that's up here is The Academy Is. So, this band that has been on our emo tier lists, and as far as you know, emo pop punk bands, emo pop bands are concerned, I still think they're pretty cool. I'm gonna give them a B tier. They do have some cracks a little bit on their second album, Santi. But as far as, like, you know, doing the pop punk thing, they're pretty good. I would recommend you guys check them out, especially their singles. About a Girl, of course, is their most iconic song, and there's a reason for that. Go check it out. And then we got, following up on them, Acceptance, another emo pop band. Also being one of the very few bands that is signed by a Christian label that's not a Christian band, which I will give them credit where credit is due. Again, once we get to Amberlin, which will be the first Christian band, I'll bring up my bias and all that stuff there. But yeah, no, Acceptance. Okay. Their emo stuff, so like their first album as well as their 2017 album, I thought was pretty good. But I will admit their raw pop punk stuff is not like the best. It's not the worst, but it's not like, you know, anything I would say is like amazing, or at least not anymore. So I'm gonna give them a B tier as well. I'd say their highlights would be Take Cover, Difference, which is one of their more emo songs, and I mean, those are my two personal favorites. What's the other? God damn it, I can't think of the other songs. God damn it, I am an idiot. So Contagious. That's the other song. That's right. Yeah, that's their most popular one. So yeah, those I would recommend as far as like stuff from their first album is concerned. And again, because they're not a Christian band, I'm fine with them. I guess Against the Current. Oh boy, a band that I have not talked about in almost 4 years, because this was a band that was in our original tier list with Saimori and Big Joseph. So this was the first band that that was a band that Saimori recommended to be on there. Problem is that I am not a big fan. They're not the worst. Don't get it twisted. There's much worse bands on this list that we'll get to, but I've always have been pretty against. And it's not even that they seem like terrible people either. I just am not a big fan of bands that are clearly popped up by their record label. In this case, Fueled by Ramen, which that's a name that is going to be brought up a lot when it comes to us talking about bands, because Fueled by Ramen back in the 2000s were a huge label for pop punk bands. But starting in the 2010s, they started to lean more into the pop direction, and they were signing rock bands into pop bands. This is one of those instances of a band that was dealt that card. And again, I feel bad for doing this, but because of that, I just have to put them in D. They don't really stand out as much as I wish they could. Again, they don't seem like terrible people, and they're not the worst band I've ever heard. It's just not very good music, at least in my opinion. They're certainly better than the next band, though. Alien Ant Farm. Oh my god. Okay. Some people are confused as to why I'm having this band on here. People call them a nu metal band. I never saw it. I've always saw them as more both a post-grunge and a pop-punk band. They are not a nu metal band. I don't know why people do. I mean, their most popular song that isn't a cover is The Movies, which is just straight up a pop-punk jam. And it's lame. Mega lame. So, again, this is a band that, honestly, people only remember because of their Michael Jackson cover. And yeah, it's not even that good to begin with. I know Saimori he fucking loves the Alien Ant Farm cover. Or he doesn't love, but he doesn't like it. But yeah, they're a nothing burger of a band. Like, again, they only struck big because of that cover, and it's a lame ass cover. So this is our first F tier. They don't do anything else. Like, again, after 2001, what else did they produce? Name me one song other than, their Michael Jackson cover of Smooth Criminal. Or yeah, their cover of Smooth Criminal and their song Movies. Go. You can't. Because they're lame. So, no. No. Alien Ant Farm, lame. No. As far as pop punk is concerned. So... this band's bad. Oh my god. Okay. Let's calm ourselves down a little bit and let's talk about Alkaline Trio, which is a band that I have much more respect for. I'm going to put them in A tier. Oh, they also released an album out of the blue, and it was actually pretty good this year. Like, I was not expecting that. Like, yeah, because I saw on my Spotify feed that like Alkaline Trio released an album, and I was surprised. And yeah, no, it was pretty good. And even just the stuff, in their early years, like From Here to Infirmary, of course, Crimson. Um, I like Agony and Irony. Yeah, I know some people are kind of iffy on that one, but like, I find them to be a pretty solid band that does emo, punk, and pop punk, fusing it all together into a cohesive sound. Go check them out if you haven't already. I've talked about them plenty of times before. Go check them out. All right, here we go. All American Rejects. The band where they make songs about Legos. So, okay, this one. Okay, oh yeah, by the way, I have seen. Okay, I should probably preference that I have seen since the past couple of years I've been going to more like live concerts. I have started to see a lot of the bands that we're seeing on here. I've seen Academy is live. They were all right live. All American Rejects I somewhat saw live. It was at When We're Young 2022. They were okay live, and you know what? This band gets a lot of shit, but I don't think it's fully justified. Because that first self-titled debut, as well as the album Moving On, we can make fun of the song, like the title track, all we want. But like, I do think that those are genuinely really solid pop punk albums. And hell, even their like 2008 record, I think was an album that kind of got overlooked by a lot of people. I mean, that's the one that has Give You Hell, which, thankfully a lot of people like. But yeah, I just feel like part of the problem is that like their last album from 2012, they're still around and they haven't made a new album yet. That's pretty rough. They just haven't really done anything, and that's part of the problem. They have the talent. I just want them to use it. And unfortunately, because of that sort of apathy, I'm just kind of iffy about them. It's not like System of a Down where it's like, with all their albums, they're pretty good, and they even released some stuff back in 2020. All American Rejects, at least from what as I'm concerned, they just haven't done anything in general. So yeah, I don't know. I'm going to put them in B tier for now. And keep in mind, I can change my tiers as I go along. So if I decide that a band is better than than I give it, or if a band is much worse, I can change the tiering. For now, I'm going to put them in B tier. I think, again, they got a lot of shit for the wrong reasons. And I personally do respect whatever stuff they did, so I would still recommend them. Another band that I would still recommend is All Time Low. I saw these guys live last year, and they were pretty good for the most part. They did kind of fumble with a few of their more recent outputs. Obviously, Last Young Renegade, I would definitely say, is probably their weakest album thus far. They did pick things up back in 2020, but the album that they released last year was also kind of iffy. That being said, though, I still defend their early stuff. So Wrong It's Right is, of course, a certified classic album. The Party Room, I still defend. I know it's a bit rough, but as like an emo / pop punk hybrid album, it being their only emo album, if I'm just going to be frank, honestly, it's an enjoyable ride, and it's a damn shame that they don't have it on streaming services. Thankfully, they have the best songs on streaming services because they re-recorded them a year later onto the EP from 2006. But I wish the whole album was on there. Nothing Personal is also pretty good. Don't Panic as well. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, they do have a legacy, and I do respect that legacy. Hell, there's a reason why I have this particular tier list, the cover for like they're the cover for that. So I'm gonna put them in B tier. So it might change, but that's where I'll have them for now. All right, Amber Pacific, a band that I've talked about plenty of times on our emo tier lists. I'm gonna make this one pretty quick. I do like their emo stuff more than their pop punk stuff. Their emo albums being their first 2 albums, and their last 2 albums being more pop punky. I'm not the biggest fan of their later stuff. So because of that, I'm gonna put them in C tier. But don't make a mistaken, I do think that overall they're a B tier band. It's just their first 2 albums are better than their last 2, at least in my opinion. So there's that. Oh no, American Hi-Fi, a band that I did in our first update list, and well, I put them in D tier last time. But if I'm gonna be honest, after we were playing some of them, because we played some of this music yesterday while I was playing Payday 2, just to kind of get myself a bit more, up to date with everything. After listening to a few of their songs, yeah, no, I think they're actually worse. I had to put them in F tier, because this is just very dated to 2001 to 2004. The production is so rough on the music that they made, especially that one single that we listened to. Yeah, Flavor of the Week. That was really rough, man. And I think that's my biggest problem, is that they are just a band that they kind of have shitty production as far as pop punk is concerned. And yeah, even some of the other tracks that they had, The Art of Losing, it just sounds okay. I'm admittedly listening to it a little bit now, and yeah, no, these lyrics are just kind of, it feels like just general rebellious music. It's fake angst music. I don't know, man. They are just not that good. I don't know. At least in comparison to some of the other bands we've talked about, I just, in good faith, can't really recommend this band at all. So yeah, no, they're going down. Which, speaking of bands that are going down, Anne Berlin. Okay, so I've mentioned this plenty of times in our other lists. I am someone who is personally an atheist. I don't like listening to Christian rock at all, because this is one of the Christian rock bands that are on the list. And I've talked about this band in our emo tier list. I'm not someone who likes music that is preaching religious values. And because of that, by default, I cannot put them higher than F. This one's gonna give me a lot of shit, I know. But I can't get myself to listen to that stuff, because I don't want to feel like I'm listening to music that's preaching to me. That's just me personally. I don't care if, they're the best band of all time in a lot of people's eyes. I cannot tolerate, I can't tolerate Christian metaphors, every other song. Especially as someone who, who did, was raised in an area that was pretty Christian conservative. You probably see my problem. I'm not going to get into specifics about my personal life. I never will, because I don't want people knowing about my personal life. But let's just say that because of just my personal experiences with around, religion, That's why I'm a straight up atheist. So granted, they're not the worst example of a band that does that shit. There's plenty of bands we've talked about that have done even worse bullshit involving, you know, that type of stuff. But I still cannot, in good faith, recommend this band. Solely because of that. So, I know that's probably gonna, you know...
What a shame.
Exactly. So, but yeah, no, I can't. I'm sorry, I just can't join up with that. Alright, well, next band, Avian Row, a band that I think it was on our first emo tier list, but I think I actually removed them because they just, you know, sounded more pop-punky. And, yeah, they're not bad, but they're definitely a C-tier band. Again, I'm not getting into too much detail with them. They're just kind of okay. There's much worse. But, like, yeah, they're just kind of average as far as I'm concerned. So, which, yeah, let's see. Speaking of bands that I used to think was average, Bayside. Okay, this is a band that I remember I gave a lot of shit to in our original emo tier list, but I think I was too harsh on them. Because, again, that debut was not a very good debut. Because, like, I was judging them based off of that. But then after I listened to their self-titled, and I listened to Already Gone, and even some of the new songs that they released, because they also just released a new album this year. Yeah, no, I'm going to put them in B tier. So, as far as I'm concerned, pretty underrated band. And they're not just a pop punk or even an emo band. They are also a straight up punk band and even a post-hardcore band. So just everything punk under the sun, they do. And they do it in a pretty decent way, except for that debut. The debut is not very good. They're not like a band that I would say reinvents the wheel. Like, they're not like a groundbreaking band, but they're still a band that I would lightly recommend. So, go check them out. And then we've got bands that are, well... Blink-182. So, this is yet another band that I saw live last year. I saw them at When We're Young. And, okay. This is gonna piss some people off. Okay, so I put these guys in C tier originally in our OG bands, like the original like tier list that we did back in 2020. My opinion is actually lower to them like after actually kind of watching them live. You guys can hate me, but you know it's true that they're terrible live. Like, they're terrible live, and you agree, you're just fucking projecting. But okay, but in all seriousness though, these guys were really bad live. Really, really bad live. I was there with my cousin, because they got the tickets for me, and, you know, thankfully I was actually with them as opposed to being alone, like, in the first year, like, the 2 years ago, the first year. And, yeah, we were cringing the entire time. You know what I ended up doing? I swear to God. Where's my... Yeah. You know, I literally did this. While we were in the... Okay, so, for context, the layout of the, When We're Young... You know, the place where When We're Young was, it's in the Las Vegas, festival area, right? We were underneath one of the giant speaker towers. Like, we were just kind of standing in front of one. And admittedly, I was already kind of feeling tired because, you know, standing around, and I decided to sit down. Yeah, halfway through the concert, I just straight up pulled up my fucking earplugs and I just was listening to Green Day up until when Green Day finally showed up. It was so bad. It was so bad. Again, I didn't have like a really big... I did not have like high favors when it came to this band to begin with. Because, again, I did not like their debut. I hated the album after that. And the self-titled has honestly some of the most annoying fucking music ever. Neighborhoods was kind of forgettable. And, well, let's just say California and, was it 8 or 9? Not very good albums. So, leaving only 2 albums that I think are somewhat okay. And even then, Emina of the State has one of the most annoying singles I've ever heard in my life. I don't care what people say. All the Small Things is terrible. You know I'm right. You know it's the most overplayed fucking pop punk song ever. Like, I hate that song so much. I actually hate that song. I can't stand that song. So, again, 2 out of like what 9 or 10 albums that are at least somewhat stomachable for me, that's a bad ratio. Again, it's the SpongeBob principle. People fucking love SpongeBob to the fucking high heavens. And, you know, I can understand why. I like the first 3 seasons of SpongeBob. That's only like fucking 18% of the show, though. So it's like, you know, that's a pretty bad ratio. So because of that, I'm sorry. Not only are they not going to, like, not only are they a C tier band.
What a shame.
I had to. I don't like Blink-182. I don't like Blink-182. I just don't. We are not a Blink-182, like, we're not pro Blink-182 in this household. They're overrated. I'm sorry. I can't stand this band anymore. Like, and again, it doesn't help that, like, it's not just me saying it, but a lot of people are saying that, like, you know, each newer release gets worse and worse every single year. So, yeah, I can't in good faith. I can't in good faith put this higher. Yeah, this one's gonna piss everyone off. I know for a fact. But I swear, I actually don't like this shit. I'm telling you, dead right here. I do not like Blink-182. And I think they are not only overrated, but have made some of the worst pop punk ever. And I'm saying that with a straight face, looking dead at you in the camera. It is that bad for me. Granted, they're not the worst band. Trust me. It's not a situation with me like with 21 Pilots or Limp Bizkit. I don't think they're that bad. But I don't like this band. I don't like this band. Unfortunately, I know why they're popular. It's because their music was accessible. Are they the best pop punk band of all time? Fuck no. So, yeah. But yeah, I'm gonna get comments on this one. Jesus Christ. Again, I'm not gonna shout on anyone who likes Blink-182. If you like Blink-182, that's fine. Just don't make your personality. Anyways, let's move on. Because there's still a lot of bands we gotta talk about. Bowling for Soup. Okay, again, another band that a lot of people like, or liked, but admittedly, it's also another case where it's like they have more bad than they have good. Though, to be fair, they have more good than bad, at least in my opinion. I will defend their stuff from the mid-2000s. Yeah, especially, yeah, the album that had 1985 on it. I forgot the name of the album. I think it just if not, if it didn't, it's about to have its 20th anniversary real soon. Oh yeah, Hangover You Don't Deserve. Yeah, that album. That, as well as The Great Burrito Extortion Case. That's a fucking weird name. I will defend those two albums for sure. And hell, I'll even defend Let's Do It for Johnny. Like, they're early to mid 2000 stuff. Yeah, and Drunk Enough to Dance. I would say those four albums, make up a lot of the mistakes that they ended up with making. Sorry for Partying, unfortunately, was the beginning of their downfall, because that has got to be one of the cringiest albums I've ever had to listen to. It's pretty bad, people. Like, it's... Granted, and here's the other thing, and I even remember talking about this in our, first tier list we did back in 2020. I remember I just have considered this band to be pretty dated as far as their humor. Like, I don't know. Because they did a lot of, pop cultural references at the time. And, I don't know, it just feels more tacky nowadays. Again, they're not the worst thing in the world, but I can only really put them up to C tier. They're okay. They're not the worst thing in the world. They don't, make me, well, except for on Sorry for Partying, but, they don't inherently make me cringe every time I listen to them. So, I will give them credit where credit is due. Alright, next up, Boys Like Girls. Another band I saw live. Kind of. Not entirely, but I heard their big singles live, so... So, they're fine. I'll put them in B tier. I'd say The Great Escape and Thunder are definitely their best songs. If you want more of a, slower type of, pop punk. That's all I gotta really say, though. They're not... Yeah, they're okay. Like, I would recommend them just enough. So... That's why they're going there. Alright, and then, yeah, Boys Nights Out. So this was a band that we added recently in our emo tier list. So, yeah, they're an emo pop punk band. Kind of Midwest emo-y a little bit as well. And I put them in B tier last time. I'm still going to put them in B tier as well. They are creative enough in their way in which they do both emo and pop punk that I would recommend you guys at least check them out a little bit. So I don't really have much anything else to say about them. Go check out our emo tier list if you guys want more context. But yeah, I'd say they're pretty a-okay. Alright, brand new. Yes, I know Jesse Lacey is a fucking weirdo, to say it lightly. God, okay, this band is just kind of difficult to kind of talk about because of that. Here's the thing. And this is unfortunately something that I do feel like I need to talk about when it comes to pop punk bands, because I feel like if there's any genre that gets a lot of, criticism for being a bit too friendly, this is kind of one of those genres. It's unfortunately something that I've noticed is pretty damn common when it came to a lot of the bands from this, scene. Obviously, not every single band is this, and it's, definitely a minority of people. It's just, unfortunately, that is a kind of a problem with quite a few of these bands. I mean, hold on. I guess I need to look up just kind of the general history of this band, because I remember I put these guys in our update tier list. I straight up put them in cringe, but I didn't do anything in the most recent tier list, so it's like, But yeah, let me again. I'm gonna like look up some. Okay, I think. Okay. This one's a bit of a touchy one. All I'm gonna say about this band, and by the way, we're judging this based off of their first album, their second album, and their last album. Because they're not fully a pop punk band. They're more known for being an emo band, but you know, they've done pop punk stuff scattered throughout. Oh my goddamn here. Shit. I mean, at least from what I can tell, he's at least recognized that he fucked up and he's giving himself treatment, at least from what I've seen. So it's not like someone who doubled down, but it's like again, this is why you're talking to someone who really just has a difficult time trying to separate the art from the artist. Like, I'm someone who just, especially after the fucking Lost Prophets situation, like that's a prime example of a band where it's like, can you really separate the art from the artist? Yeah. So that being said, I'll put them in. I'm not gonna put them in B tier. I'll put them in C tier because if we want to use the argument of like separating the art from the artist, then fine. But as far as I'm personally concerned, like, yeah, it's just one of those bands where it's like, it's kind of hard to like, do things. So that being said, though, there's much better, examples of pop punk, and again, that is unfortunately just a bit of a problem that we're gonna be talking about with some of these other bands in a little bit. That there is unfortunately a bit of a pedo problem with certain pop punk bands. So it is unfortunate, and obviously we got to call that shit out because that's never okay. It's just, yeah. But anyways, let's move on to the next band, which by the way, I feel like I need to look up information about some of these things. But yeah, okay. Next up is Chunk No Captain Chunk, a band that I have not I have not talked about in like 3.5 years. Yeah, they're the metalcore / deathcore / pop punk band. And yes, deathcore / pop punk. An interesting combination, but it's one that like isn't particularly for me. So I'm gonna put them in C tier as well. Not bad. This is not really my thing. Which, speaking of not really my thing, cute is what we aimed for, and unfortunately, what you aimed for did not hit, because I did not care for you guys either. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put you in a D tier. Not the worst band in the world, but yeah, not really my thing. Thankfully, what is my thing is A Day to Remember. Now, A Day to Remember is kind of a weird one for me, because I consider them to be more not just metalcore, but also just straight up just punk as opposed to pop punk. Though they do personally classify themselves as being a pop punk band, and they do have enough albums to pretty much be pop punk. Basically everything from What Separates Me From You onwards is pretty much has pop punk influences.
So, but as far as like, what separates me from you, common courtesy, and bad vibrations, even putting You're Welcome into the mix, even though that's more just a straight up pop rock album, I'm going to put them in A tier. I think they are a pretty solid band, and I've talked about them plenty of times. Go check them out. All right, the early November. Shit. How did I think about these guys? Okay, I don't remember these guys. Okay, I know they were on our emo tier list, our most recent emo tier list, but I do want to like, if you guys don't mind if I double check how I felt about them, because it has been forever since I've it's been 6 months. Oh yeah, D. Yeah, they're another one of those Midwest emo pop hybrid bands that I just didn't really care for. They're not the worst thing in the world, but yeah, they're not really, my cup of tea. Eve 6. Okay, so this is an interesting one. So yeah, there's some bands that are pop punk that also dabbled into like grunge, like post grunge a little bit. Eve 6 being one of them. And I will say it's not like a mix I'm entirely like, in love with. Though I will say Eve 6, they were fine. I'll give them a C tier as well. I would definitely say like as far as like mixing pop punk with post grunge, you could have done it worse. So I'll put them in the C tier. Falling in reverse. Rodney Radke, Ronald McDonald the Clown strikes again. The band infamous for being our first F tier band. Well, our first F tier item in the entire series. And, well, that ain't gonna change. Okay. Tangent about Falling in Reverse. So, I have certain private, social media for just my personal life. I'm not gonna share you guys any of that shit because like that's my stuff personally. And I followed like a lot of like emo and like alternative stuff on there. And I swear to God, every other time that like there's a refresh on there, there's a stupid post of like someone doing one of those like 10 band posts where it's like if you listen to insert band I love you or shit like that, and they have like a bunch of like alternative and like scene bands on there, like stuff like My Chemical Romance and Pierce the Veil, like the typical stuff. It's like, and then it's always near the very end, they always say if you like Falling in Reverse. It's like, God damn it, I don't like Falling in Reverse. Rodney Radke's a piece of shit. He's lame, he's cringe, and he threatens to call his dad every time that he feels threatened. I am not joking when I say that. He threatened to call his dad to beat up someone in the audience of one of his shows. This man's a clown. Like, okay, you're like 42, right? Like, you're 42, 43. You should not be relying on your daddy to, like, have him fix your problems. Like, come on. Come on, dude. Like, so yeah, no, and again, Rodney Radke and all. It's not even just that. Also, all the let's not even get into all the allegations that Rodney Radke has been dealing with, and just all of like the really annoying bullshit with like the music itself. And fortunately, let me remind you that for a while, there were more people that I knew who liked this band than didn't. Thankfully, though, I think Saimori has changed his tune after I told him about a lot of this bullshit involving Rodney Radke. But man, this is a pretty lame sauce band, and I'm not going to change my mind on that. Thankfully, we can go to the complete opposite because we've got Fall Out Boy, which it should be pretty obvious where they're going. They're going into S tier. Granted, I have said this before. I do, funny enough, as far as like, you know, their earlier days, yes, it is pop punk, but honestly, I would consider that stuff also to be more in line with straight up punk music, especially off of like a lot of the deep cuts from Under the Core Tree. That album is a bit more punk inspired than people give it credit. Like people just assume that's just, you know, it's just a pop punk album. It's not really, actually. It's more of a punk emo, even a little bit post hardcore, than it is like, you know, straight up pop punk. So, but yeah, they've made enough albums to where like they are a part of the genre, and obviously, as far like I've talked about them millions of times, I'm gonna make this quick. Long story short, if you want to get into Fall Out Boy, make sure you check out, as far as their pop punk stuff is concerned, Take This to Your Grave, Infinity on High, and even their newest album, for, like So Much for Stardust. Go check those out. Really damn good albums. You will not regret it. The Get Up Kids is the next band, another Midwest emo pop punk hybrid band. I still am kind of iffy with them. I'm gonna put them in C tier. Again, they're not bad. It's just not my thing. Again, Midwest emo is just never really been my thing entirely, with a few exceptions. It just feels, I don't know, I'm just not really into like the emo music mixed with folk music. It's just never really been my thing. They're not bad. As a matter of fact, their instrumentals are really good. It's just, I just wish they had a better vocalist. So yeah. Goldfinger, the first ska band, finally. We got some ska. Let's get your zoot suits and your saxophones out and your sideburns. Oh god. Okay, this is where we get into some cheesy shit. We're going back to the 90s on this one. We talked about a lot of 2000s bands. We're going to go back to the mid to late 90s here. John Feldman with Goldfinger, which I joke around and I meme about this era of music, but honestly, it really isn't that bad. As a matter of fact, or at least some of the bands aren't that bad. Like, there's some bands that just straight up are kind of cringe. But this is one of those bands that I would say does hold up. And it also helps that John Feldman has been able to find a career outside of just being in this band. He's helped produce with other bands like They Used, which we'll get to them in a little bit. And yeah, as far as like combining jazz with pop punk or ska, whatever, it's just shitty jazz. It's just jazz. Whatever. As far as combining that, they did it really well. I still give them an A tier, like I did in the first tier list that they were in. I think they were in the update 2022 tier list. Yes, they were. So yeah, no, they're pretty good. I would recommend, if that's an interesting combination, you like, you know, weird mid 90s, late 90s, you know, jazz like music. Honestly, they're pretty good choice as far as that's concerned. So yeah, too bad Good Charlotte's not. Oh shoot, wait. Oh wait, no, you guys can hear me. Sorry, this got unplugged, so I didn't know if that was gonna affect anything. But yeah, no, as far as like, wait. Oh shit, I was watching through my emo thing. God damn it, what's wrong with me? Okay, yeah, sorry. Okay, but anyways, good Charlotte. I've mentioned to you guys plenty of times, this was a regret band for me. This is a band that, frankly, was clearly marketing to that teenage demographic, that ripe age of, 10 to 15-year-olds. That's what their music was marketed to. And, well, okay. I put them in D tier in our last tier, I think the last tier list that we mentioned them on. But here's the thing, and this pissed me off. So I so one of the music review channels that I watch quite a bit is a channel called Rocknet. They do a lot, they do a lot of, rock, metal, alternative punk reviews. And I remember in one of their videos they reviewed the album Young and Hopeless, their most successful album. On the deep cuts, okay, it was already bad enough that I already thought that this band was pretty cringe in its, in a lot of, their lyrics and the instrumentals, and just kind of them being a very, very, very watered down version of a band like Green Day. But what put me off against this band were, on one of the deep cuts, they straight up had a song that was celebrating suicide. Let me repeat that for you guys. They had a song on their most popular album where it was just the band glorifying suicide. I don't think I need to explain how fucked up that is. Do I need to explain that? I'm not gonna get into my personal life, but let's just say that as someone who has been very open about depression and anxiety, that is fucked up. I listen to these motherfuckers. So yeah, no. F tier. As a matter of fact, you know what? I'm gonna make a new tier. We're bringing back the cringe tier. That's the fucking worst. So yeah, do I need to explain how fucked up that is? Again, and they accused emo bands for doing that shit. But then, you have, like, a shitty pop punk band just blatantly doing it. And how no one gives a shit, I will never know. Because I can give shit all I want, unfortunately. The saddest part about this, they still have 5.4 million listeners on Spotify.
What a shame.
That's actually genuinely fucking sad. Like, and again, it's not a situation where it's them describing the feelings of suicide. It's them glorifying it. It's not Hawthorne Heights, which we'll get into a little bit in a second, where I actually misinterpreted the lyrics as them, no. They were just straight up glorifying it, which is unacceptable. So, yeah, no, fuck this band. Actually, fuck this band. So, I'm never gonna fucking support this band ever. Granted, I haven't done it in about 7 years. I'm still gonna continue. And people can be all fucking salty all they want, Because unfortunately, I was given shit. That's the worst part. I was given shit for not liking Good Charlotte. This is one of the few instances where if you're still actively defending a band, even if I tell you they're literally a band that like just straight up promoted suicide, you're a piece of shit. I'm just gonna be frank with you. And if you're gonna fucking defend Good Charlotte even after this video, you're fucking going like, or if you're still going to support Good Charlotte and you're gonna give me shit, then good luck getting blocked. I'm not gonna fucking deal with that. So, fuck this band. So, anyways, let's move on to Hawthorne Heights, a band that its most popular song is also about suicide, but it's not necessarily, by the way, at this point, I know in our older tier lists, I've been kind of stingy about not saying the word suicide, but at this point, yeah, like, but here's the difference between Hawthorne Heights and Good Charlotte. Context. The context in the lyrics of Ohio is for Lovers matters. Because in that, it's, yeah, because in the context of that song, it's more so about, you know, the interpersonal feelings. It's not glorifying it at all. That being said, I will admit, Hawthorne Heights is kind of a weird band because I was debating on whether or not I wanted to add them because they're more associated with like emo and post-hardcore, but they do have quite a bit of their catalog as pop punk. That being said, it's not particularly good. I prefer their more, you know, straight up post-hardcore emo inspired stuff from the first several years of their existence. So, you know, Silence in Black and White and If Only You Were Lonely. Those were, like, at least in my opinion, their best albums. Fragile Future started going in that pop punk direction, and that I'd say is probably the best that they did with that style, but outside of that, not really like the best. So because of that, I'm gonna put them in C tier. They're a much better band that stuck with emo and post-hardcore, at least in my opinion. Which, speaking of, you know, emo and post-hardcore, Hey Mercedes. They're another band we've talked about before. I don't particularly remember liking them that much, so I'm gonna put them in C tier as well. Actually, I'm probably gonna put, yeah, I didn't really like them that much. Yeah, I'm gonna put them in D tier. Yeah, they just weren't really my jam per se. Let me double check though, because like, again, I don't remember particularly liking them all that much. So hopefully my hair is like okay for you guys, because admittedly, okay, yeah, okay, I put them in C tier. Okay, fair. Hot Mulligan, another emo band that went pop punk, and I think I had them in B tier. Their 2020 album actually I did think was pretty good. So yeah, sorry. I'm trying to make sure I remember this, by the way, because like I know I've fucked up in with some bands, but you know, in one tier list I had them in A tier, and in the tier list after that I had them in D tier. I'm trying to make sure I don't make that mistake. So okay, B tier. Their most recent output has been pretty good. Their first few is iffy, but they've gotten better. So, yeah. All right, Jawbreaker, a pretty early band from, you know, as far as this list is concerned. I am gonna put them in C tier. There's better bands that do that sort of, you know, style of like pop punk, at least in my opinion. So I'm gonna put them in the lower tier. Jim, again, I'm trying to go a little bit faster with some of these because again, you know, there's so many bands that like, you know, I mean, we're thankfully almost to the bands that like we haven't talked about, so don't worry. Jimmy Eat World. Fuck it, B tier. I was iffy with them, but I will admit that was mostly because I wasn't as familiar. I am now more familiar with the work, and I do respect them, and I even saw them live, and they were pretty good live. I don't remember if they're going to When We Were Young this year. No, they are going to When We Were Young this year. I will give them a second chance. Well, if there's no other band that I want to see is going to be wherever they're showing. But regardless, I am going to check them out a bit more. And I do respect them more now that I am more familiar with the work. I don't know if I feel comfortable with putting them in the A tier, but they're still pretty good. Like, even like post Futures, they still have some pretty good they have a pretty good output. So, all right. The Jonas Brothers. Okay. So, you guys are probably confused. Why the hell? The Jonas Brothers? They're not pop punk. Have you listened to their, like, early stuff? I mean, whether you like it or not, I mean, it is pop punk sounding, like, especially year 3000. I'm not saying it's good. Okay. Jonas Brothers, I remember I put them in D tier in our original tier list. So don't get it twisted. I still don't really care for Jonas Brothers, especially like their sorry, my hair keeps splitting up. My hair just has a tendency to split up. It's annoying. But yeah, as far as like old Jonas Brothers, like, okay, as far as like the new stuff, I don't give a shit about like any of their newer output. Like, I could give less of a fuck about everything they've released since 2019. I will admit they are kind of a guilty pleasure in points though. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I know. They're not. I didn't say they were good, because they're not like good. But like, I don't know. I have a weird history with Jonas Brothers. Obviously, we talked about them not only on here, but also on the Disney Channel tier list. They're kind of just a bit of a meme for us here on the Sly Army podcast, or Sly Army, like here in the Sly Army. They're not bad, or okay, they're not the worst thing I ever listened to. And again, their early stuff, I will admit, it is kind of catchy. Though you're not gonna catch me listening to Year 3000 or like SOS in the next like several years probably. But they're not the worst. They're not F tier. They're just, fine. I'll give them a pass. Which, speaking of bands that, like, I remember being a bit harsh on, Mayday Parade, I've put these guys all over the fucking tiers. But if I have to be honest with myself, they're a B tier pop punk band. There's way worse bands. And frankly, they do have A Lesson in Romantics, which is a pretty solid album in its own right. And they do have, and I will admit, I've started to warm up on their catalog overall. It does still kind of sound samey. They are a one-trick pony, but at least the sound is a bit better than a lot of other one-trick ponies. So I will give them credit. They're a one-trick pony, but like, it's at least an okay trick. It's not like fucking Breaking Benjamin, where it's literally the same shit and it's not even a good trick. So, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, fine. I'll just say fuck it and put them in B tier. Modern Baseball, another Midwest emo band, even though they're from Pennsylvania, so they're not technically Midwest emo, but whatever. C tier. They're fine. Again, Midwest emo is just not really my thing. Especially combining with pop punk. It's just not really my thing. Okay. Moose Blood. Another band that is complicated to talk about, to say the least. Because, well, this band was disbanded back in 2018. And, well, to be frank, I really liked their last album. That's the one that had, shit, I can't think of the fucking thing. But yeah, sorry, I'm looking up some stuff so that oh no, not their second album, excuse me. That's the one that had Honey, that's right. I like that song. But yeah, as far as like oh, okay, they had a one-off show earlier this year. Which, yeah, fair. But yeah, no, like it's complicated with like what's happened with like the allegations and stuff. Again, pop punk just has that big problem with like, members being a bit too, friendly. That being said, I'm gonna put them in C tier because again, that second album, so damn good. I just wish they didn't lose the plot. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. Motion City Soundtrack, B tier. Really good emo band. And by the way, I'm noticing a lot of bands are going. Oh my god! I just realized what I just fucking did on the tier. Okay, I'm scattering the tier list because I just realized what I did. Okay, we're moving some shit down. Jesus Christ. Okay, fuck it. Jimmy World, you're going up to A tier. All Time Low, you're also going up into A tier. And hey Mercedes, yeah, I was gonna put you guys in D tier. You guys are going down there. And shit. Fuck it. Hawthorne Heights is going up into B tier. All right, there we go. I did not intend to make what I did. I apologize. But anyways, Motion City Soundtrack. Their pop punk style I think is pretty good. Especially in like the first two albums, and even My Dinosaur Life. My Dinosaur Life is pretty underrated as far as I'm concerned. So I'd recommend you guys check that one out. And then, so yeah, there's that. And then next up, also they were pretty good live. All right, next up, Newfound Glory. I mean, yeah, they're a C tier band. I'm not really gonna repeat what I said before. All I'm gonna say is, unfortunately, over time, the vocals really started to kill the momentum of the band. It's not the worst of like the nasally voices now. Like it's not the worst, but it's pretty noticeable. And yeah, let's just say that it's a bit of a mood killer at points. So, and again, it was pretty bad whenever we saw them live. So yeah. All right, no doubt. Um, I think I mentioned before that, or no, wait, did I mention? No, I didn't. So yeah, this one's kind of a weird one for me because, well, let's just say that, okay, this is gonna be a very interesting thing. A relative of mine was actually really good friends with Gwen Stefani whenever they were in high school.
What?
Yeah, yeah, no, I have a relative who was pretty close to Gwen Stefani, like even when they started their band. So, funny enough, I knew that whenever I was doing the tier list, whenever I talked about them last time, but I didn't really, want to bring it up. But yeah, no, like I had direct relatives of mine that were pretty close to Gwen Stefani whenever, like, they started off in this band, which is really weird. I mean, it should make sense because I've mentioned this before. I was born in California, and I was born around the same time as, like, whenever a lot of these bands were becoming a bit, pretty big. Um, and yeah, no, we had, yeah, no, like, I mean, we're not like, they're not like, family friends in particular anymore. But like, yeah, no, like, it's a weird story, I guess. But yeah, no. That being said, even putting that bias aside, they are a genuinely really good ska era pop punk band. I'm gonna put them in A tier. As I would definitely say, I mean, especially since this obviously was the kickstart for Gwen Stefani's career, into the pop idol that everyone knows her from, like knows her for, excuse me. But not only that, but also even the guys who were in No Doubt, they ended up making their own stuff on the side as well. So that's pretty cool. And so yeah, like it's so weird that I have family members who were like basically best friends with Gwen Stefani. Like that's so weird to me. Like again, I remember learning about that like years ago, and that like blew my mind. But yeah, it's weird, but it's kind of cool. But I'm not. It's neither here nor there. At the end of the day, though, I still respect their craft, and obviously they've done great things. So all I gotta say is keep up the good work. All right, North Star. They're another one of those emo bands that are also pop punk. I put them in C tier. I'm still gonna put them in C tier. They're okay, but that's all I gotta really say about them. So yeah. The Offspring, another band that I've not talked about to you guys in years. Um, they are still a B tier, but they're tethering a little bit because not only did they make some pretty tacky stuff off of some of their late 90s material, but also, well, their last album was pretty bad. That being said, I still think that they are, oh my god, this is never gonna escape me, isn't it? Jesus Christ, am I inadvertently a dirty man? Jesus. Okay, whatever. Offspring, as far as pop punk bands, is pretty good. Um, and I would definitely still say that like Smash is a pretty iconic album in its own right. Even the stuff in the early 2000s they did pretty good. Um, so yeah, that's all I gotta really say. Offspring, pretty good as far as pop punk is concerned. And then we got Paramore, which is going in S tier for very obvious reasons. Need I say more? I don't think so. So just go check out our other tier lists. Need I say more? Plain White Tees, C tier. Not the worst band. I still think Hey There Delilah is still a pretty nice little ballad song. But even some of their other lesser known hits like Hate, Really Really Like, I Hate, Really Really, or I Really Really Don't Like You. Or even some of their stuff from like before they were popular. It's cool and all, but like again, I wouldn't say that like they're a top tier pop punk band or even top tier emo band as far as I'm concerned. So they're just pretty neat. So yeah. And then we've got the Presidents of the United States of America, which yeah, okay, hold on. Shit. My goddamn okay, I need to figure out I need like hair clips. I need to ask my cousin to see if like they have like hair clips because like this is really getting annoying. Oh my god, this is so bad. All right. Anyways, but yeah, the presidents of the United States of America. Yes, they are in fact a pop punk band, but not in the traditional sense. They are another one of those bands that experimented with both pop punk and post grunge. And yes, they are a post grunge band. They are not a grunge band. They debuted in 1995. That is too late. Post grunge. Yeah, post grunge. Not grunge. Anyways, they're all right, but again, they're just a band that like I do find to be a bit overrated. They're not the worst, but C tier will suffice. They just are kind of tacky for my. They're just a bit too tacky for my taste. At least for me. And then we got Pup, which is a band that I did not vibe with as much. I'm gonna put them in D tier. I know it has a fan base, but I've never really I never really got the style. Like that sort of, pop punk just mix, I think was done way better by other bands. And they're sort of, mid 2010s sort of lo-fi look I really fucking hated. I cannot stand that shit. And they just embraced it with like their album covers and their music videos. I hate that shit so much. So no thank you. Which speaking of bands that are a definite no thank you, Red Jumpsuit Apparatus is a big no in my book. F tier. They are also just like Alien Ant Farm, and I've even described them on stream as this. They are a bag of nothing. They are a one-hit wonder where the one hit wasn't even all that good to begin with, and they were just quickly forgotten outside of that single. And not only that, but also a lot of their mixings of both pop punk and post-hardcore just didn't work. So, no thank you. All right, next up, Real Big Fish, another ska band, as we come to appreciate. Got my hair. I'm fixing my hair in the next stream, by the way. I apologize if I've been messing with that all stream. It's just I like to have a look, okay? Granted, I'm not, I don't have the fringe right now because I'm trying to go for a more casual, guy in their 20s look, which I am a guy in my 20s, but whatever. Real Big Fish, B tier. They're not as good as Goldfinger, but they do have their hits. And I would definitely say that if you wanted another band that like was able to do the ska thing pretty decently, I would definitely recommend these guys. So that's all I've really got to say. All right, Saves the Day. I'm putting these guys in C tier. Another emo pop punk hybrid band. Again, for all the emo bands that are on here, go check out our emo tier lists. All I gotta really say is I've warmed up to them, but I still wouldn't say that they're like, my personal favorite band. Yeah, there's just some problems when it comes to both production, even vocal delivery that I do kind of have issues with. So, that being said, this was the band that did help. This was a band that did kind of help to like with the sound that would be popular with bands like Fall Out Boy. So, in that respect, I will give credit where credit is due. But I just do prefer Fall Out Boy's style of that, emo pop. All right, Say Anything. So, okay. This one is a bit of another weird one because I saw these guys live and they released a new album. Problem is the album was
It's not good.
Yeah, it was kind of in the lyrical department. Okay. Here's the thing. Okay. I do like Say Anything. Like, I do consider Is a Real Boy to be a pretty phenomenal album from whenever it came out. It came out back in 2004. It was a rock opera that was sort of like, both a parody, but also a commemoration of what emo was around that time. Like, it was, yeah, it was both a, it was making fun, but also, celebrating emo, which I do respect. And of course, that was held up by In Defense of the Genre. And of course, they ended up, releasing, the self-titled. And those albums, I would consider all three of those to be fantastic. They did kind of dip in the 2010s, though. I will say, I wouldn't say that, like, their music from the 2010s is absolutely unlistenable. But, man, that new album... Here's the thing. Instrumentally, the album is really good. It's just the lyrics are kind of cringe. Because a lot of it is just sexual innuendos. And while that wouldn't necessarily be, like... Though... I'm not a prude. I'm not someone who, like, gets icky about, like, sexual stuff. Or at least not as much anymore. But it's like, dude... You're like, what, a 43-year-old man? I don't know. I don't see any of the music on their new album being, like band staples. Like, you know what I mean? And again, like, that doesn't necessarily ruin the music for me. As far as I'm concerned. Or at least, like, let me rephrase that. One bad album doesn't necessarily negate an entire band's work. But then we have Max Bemis himself, because he's another very interesting character. Granted, not in, like, an extremely fucked up way. Problem is that he has bipolar. And, yeah, that does mean that, like, it's a bit tense. So... And yes, I am well aware of, like, the drama that happened with him in recent years involving his family, like, and just him. Like, I get that. In this particular instance, I guess I can separate the art from the artist, because it's like, at least as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing about him being, like, being friendly with people that is when I cross the line. And as I mean friendly, granted, that's not just me talking about people being pedos. I guess I'm also just talking about straight up, like, you know, rhymes with grape. So just please don't be a wife beater. That's all I ask right now. Please don't. Please don't be like Sean Morgan. I swear to God. But this one I'd say is probably the most tentative B tier I'm gonna give, because the music, as far as their old stuff, yeah, their first technically 4 albums, because remember they have Baseball, their debut. It's just, you know, was kind of forgotten to time because, you know, it's not on streaming services for some stupid reason, even though I think that album's actually okay. But yeah, like, this is the most tentative B tier I'm gonna give as far as this is concerned. So that's all I gotta say about that. And then we got Census Fail, which, yeah, this one's a weird one because they count on a technicality because their debut is pop punk mixed with emo, even though, yeah, it's a very, you know, scene-looking album cover, I know. But their 2 most recent albums are also pop punk. Yeah, the one from 2 years ago and the one from 6 years ago. I cannot think of the names for the love of me right now. But they do technically count on a thing like that. And I will say, actually, no, fuck it. Yeah, I'm putting them in S tier. I love the music that they make as far as like their emo and pop punk stuff is. Their metalcore stuff is a bit rough, but as far as like emo, pop punk, and post-hardcore, they do that the best. So, and again, like, Buddy Nielsen does look like he's a pretty cool guy, and I do respect his craft. So, kind of hoping I'm able to see them again when we're young. So, again, I'm just really hoping that, like, you know, Chiodos and Cody and Cambria are not playing whenever, you know, other bands are playing, because those are going to be my automatic ones that I would really want to see, and also Silverstein, but whatever. That's emo. We're talking about pop punk here. So, but yeah, no. Census Fail, still pretty good. Set It Off is another band that I particularly did not give a shit about. And I still don't. I'm going to put them in C tier. Again, not the worst as far as pop punk is concerned. They are just not my thing. So, that being said, Simple Plan is not only an F tier, it is also cringe. I hate Simple Plan with a passion. They are one of the worst examples of pop punk, if not the worst example of pop punk. Although, well, okay. Okay, there's some competition down here, though, to be fair. But no. No. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. 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 Just no. Moving on. Okay. Whiny vocals, annoying, fucking, you know, cringy singles, and unfortunately, multiple members being, you know, being too friendly with children. There. Anyways, Sleeping with Sirens. Man, I feel bad for this band. They're not a bad band. At least, I don't think they're the worst. Because, like, they do have decent material. It's just, they make questionable decisions. Like, why are you working with MGK, for example? Which, by the way, I have not put him on this list for a good reason. Because I don't want him on my wiki. And bands that, like, I want to talk about are going to be on the wiki. Well, that, and also, he hasn't actually made enough music to count as pop punk. He's only made 2 albums, so it's not enough. Good, because I don't want to talk about him. But yeah, like, you see what I mean? It's like that was, at least in my opinion, their first fumble was back in 2013, and then kind of rolling since they've been having a few more slews of just issues. So I'll put them in a high D. Again, I know that's like close to like the bad, but like they're not like bad. So at least that's how I feel about them. So yeah, anyways, next up we've got ourselves Spanish love songs, which I'm gonna put them in B tier. I thought that they, like, even though I will say like their emo stuff isn't particularly like my favorite, I really do like their pop punk stuff. I do think that, like, as far as their sound with actually, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna put them in A tier, because again, their pop punk stuff I think is, you know, holds up way better than their emo stuff, at least in my opinion. Like, they're a much better pop punk band, especially that 2020 record. That was a really damn good record. So go check it out. Go check them out if, you know, like, you want a bit of another mix of emo and pop punk, but is a bit more fresh. Go check them out. The starting line, I'm gonna put that in B tier. I will say there are better emo pop bands, and their pop punk stuff I wouldn't necessarily say is like the greatest in the world, but it's still stuff that, like, is a good listen. Okay, story of the year, a band that I remember, like, whenever we kept talking about this, I kept forgetting I liked this band, but I remembered I like this band. I'm putting them in A tier. Like, Until the Day I Die is a certified banger, and you're never going to change my mind about that. It is a classic for a reason, but they're more than just that song. Like, they have been able to prove themselves over the years as far as combining pop punk with post-hardcore. Yeah, like Black Swan and In the Wake of Determination, I would definitely say are, really good mixes of both of those styles. I know people call them emo. I will say their debut is an emo album, but like outside of that, they're more post-hardcore. It's in my opinion. But still good, like pop punk, post-hardcore, easycore, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, and hell, even the last album that they released last year had some pretty good singles on it. So, yeah, no, I would definitely recommend you guys check out Story of the Year. They're more than just one song. They are not a one-hit wonder, as a matter. Yeah, they're not even a one-hit wonder, because Anthem of Our Dying Day was also a pretty big song back in 2003 and 4. So, yeah, I would definitely recommend you guys check them out. Unfortunately, a band that I would not recommend you guys check out is Sublime. This is a band that I was teetering on whether or not I wanted them to count, because they're more, well, I mean, first of all, they are way more reggae than they are, even something like ska. But as far as like ska punk, they still count in that sort of subcategory. They're just a bit more heavier, heavier in some places. But this is basically just weed music. Like, this is just music that, like, you put out if you just want to smoke a huge joint. That's essentially what Sublime is. It's just stoner music. Like, but, and I know some people are gonna get pissed off with me, but it's not very good stoner music. I know Randy Newman passed away. I know he's or the lead singer. I don't remember his name. That does suck that he did pass away, but the music wasn't really that good, people. Like, it's just it's very bland. Just again, it's just stoner music that's just has no substance other than yeah. And again, the songs have not aged well in this at all. It's not the worst. There's definitely some merit with some of the songs that they produced, but this is definitely not a band that I would highly recommend to anyone, really. Like, so yeah, I would advise caution with this band in particular. All right, next up we've got Sugar Cult. I liked some of their stuff. They're definitely a band that is a very interesting take on pop punk, but it is still a decent, trip. And so I would give them a B tier. Go check them out if you guys haven't already. Sum 41, a band that is I think, are they finally retired? Like, did they pack up the band already, or okay, no, they still are gonna okay, they're still going on tour. So yeah, this band is gonna like Sum 41, once they're done with the tour that they're going on right now, they're done. So if you guys haven't already, make sure you guys, check them out live. Because I will say, even though I'm not like the biggest Sum 41 fan, like really at all, they did do a really good live show whenever I saw them last year when we were young. Like, I will admit, I was pretty glad I was able to see them live. It does suck that they are going to be done by, the end of the year. In some respects. But like, I still am glad that I saw that. Even though, like I said, they're not my favorite, like, pop punk band. Even though they're more of just, a straight up punk band in some places. They're just more known for their pop punk stuff. But yeah, I will put them in a high C. I gained a bit more respect for them after I saw them live. I'd rather listen to them than Blink-182 any day of the week at this stage in my life. So, fight me. Taking Back Sunday, another band that I, just like Bayside, I gave a lot of shit to, but ultimately I have changed my mind on. I'm gonna put them in a B tier. Like, they're pretty cool in their own respect. And yeah, no, I'd recommend you guys check them out. Actually, as a matter of fact, these next few bands, there's Tomorrow and Tiny Moving Parts. I'm putting them in B tier as well. Emo pop and Midwest emo pop punk respectively, and they do both of those in their cool respective fields. They do have their issues, but overall I would still recommend them, so go check them out. The Used, okay, this is another band that, just like Census Fail and Hawthorne Heights, I was debating on whether or not I wanted to add, because, they're more known for being an emo band. But, we're judging them based off of everything post. Basically everything post Lies for the Liar. So, artwork, I think Invulnerables, is that what their 5th album's called? Revolution, The Canyon, and then the last 2 albums. Okay. I noticed a lot of people were giving the last album a lot of shit. Which made me sad, because I actually liked I liked their album from last year. Is it the best album by The Used? No. but it certainly was not. It was not the album before that, and it certainly was not The Canyon. So, and that's my problem. When they transitioned into being a pop punk band, that's when they started to have a bit of problems. So, again, they're not the worst, but as far as their pop punk stuff is concerned, it is not my jam. I'm going to put that stuff in a C tier. Again, if you want to get into the used, check out their self-titled, In Love and Death, and Lies for the Liar. Those are their best 3 albums, and it's their first 3. And that is their best stuff. Go check out that shit. Weezer. So, I mean, I'm gonna put these guys in B tier. They have so many goddamn albums. It's like, it'd be forever for me to. Okay, it's not forever. It's not like a freaking Melvin's catalog, but like, I like Weezer. I saw them live. They were pretty good, and the stuff that works really works, but the stuff that doesn't work does not work at all. They are one of those bands that are a bit of a dice roll as far as what you're gonna get, which is a shame because, well, you know, the stuff that they did good was really good. Like, there's a reason why Blue and Pinkerton are still highly respected, and now even Green and Maladroit have been giving a lot of credit recently as well. And I will defend Make Believe here. But, yeah, Weezer's just one of those bands where it's like, you love them or hate them, but you can't deny their influence on the pop punk and pop rock scenes. So, you gotta give them credit where credit is due. Alright, finally, the last 2 bands that we have talked about before we get into the bands that we have not talked about. Yellow Card. I saw these guys live when we were young. They were pretty good. It's kind of interesting that they kind of combine. They have like the violin or viola, wherever that is, in their music. Not entirely Baroque rock, but like an interesting twist. And again, like, I'm pretty glad that I saw them. And, well, Ocean Avenue. Say what you want, they have that as their biggest legacy right there. Like, even if you don't particularly care about anything else, that's one of the best pop punk albums ever made. So, as far as I'm concerned, that alone puts them into the B tier. So, there you go. And then, of course, last but not least, we got Zebrahead, the rap rock pop punk band that unfortunately had, like, had to make multiple statements about one song because it aged like sour milk. Unintentionally, by the way. And I give that shit, but honestly, they're pretty good. Like, outside of that, they're definitely a band that, like, is very, very, very of that time frame. They're a very late 90s to mid 2000s band. Like, they are a time capsule. Even their newest stuff is very reminiscent of just that era, but in a good way. It's not like, nostalgia pandering. They've always done that. That being said, they are a bit more crass than most bands out there, so if that's a turnoff, you might have to be weary about that. But as far as I'm concerned, I personally like the stuff that does work, and so, well, I can recommend Zebrahead for anyone. So, alright, so thankfully we got all the bands we talked about out of the way, and so that leaves us with all these bands down here. Before I do that, though, I am gonna, get some, like, food, and I'm gonna get a little bit of food, and I'm gonna, give myself a bit of a breather, so I'll be right back. So yeah, for these, so like, you probably guys already saw like a bit of a pattern with this. And it's a pattern that we saw with our grunge tier list. Is, I'm gonna be honest, I am just not the... I don't hate pop punk. Matter of fact, some of my favorite bands are pop punk. I mean, just look at Fall Out Boy. Fall Out Boy poster right there, of course. But, like, it's not a genre that's my favorite. I am much more of a emo post-hardcore, person. At least for me personally. Not to say that I hate the thing. It's just it's a very mid genre when you really boil it down. This is a much better ratio than the new metal tier list, though. I will give this that, because holy shit. God, that was a terrible fucking one. But anyways, let's finish this one. Yeah, let's talk about these new bands so that we've never talked about before, and I know because I made sure to double check. All right, let's start off with Plus 44. So this, actually, funny enough, is a Blink-182 side project. Yeah, two of the guys from Blink-182, they formed this side project, and funny enough, I don't hate this as much as I do proper Blink-182. Like, there we go, sorry. Yeah, like, granted, I still wouldn't say this is something I would listen to all the time. Again, part of it's just the Tom DeLonge's vocals are just not my thing, dude. I don't like those vocals. Again, vocals tend to mean a lot to me. That being said, I'll put this in C tier, which I know that's that's heresy for a lot of people, because again, I put Blink-182 in D tier. I put Plus 44 above Blink-182. But that's honestly just how I feel. Most of it is just I really don't like Blink. I just don't like that style of pop punk. And again, it's those vocals, man. They're toned down in this project, but it's just not my thing. So yeah. Alright, next up, 5 Seconds of Summer. Oh boy. So well, speaking of D tier, okay, let's just hope that the comments aren't gonna get hairy on this one. Okay. I don't hate 5 Seconds of Summer. I'm just very apathetic about the band. They're a band that you can clearly tell was clearly marketing towards a, younger audience. But unlike a band like Good Charlotte, this doesn't make me cringe. I just find them to be Again, I'm not one of those 5 Seconds of Summer haters, but again, I'm just very apathetic. That's why they're in D tier. Not the worst, but there's way, way better examples of pop punk. So, which, speaking of examples of pop punk, let's go goofy. So, let's talk about the Aquabats. Okay. Yes, this is a band, ladies and gentlemen. This is a ska pop punk band from 1996, I believe, is when their first album came out, where it's a bunch of dudes dressed up as superheroes. It's the dumbest thing ever, but I love the concept. It's so dumb, but it's the type of dumb that's just straight up fun. And yeah, obviously they do not take the music seriously at all. It's the definition of nerdcore. It does not take itself seriously at all. But it's funny as hell, and they at least have a good time doing it. And they do actually have some genuinely really good songs. Like, songs that honestly I would unironically say is pretty good. Like, for example, yeah, Super Rad. I would definitely say that song, it's one of their best songs for a reason. And yeah, they've just kind of kept doing this shtick for like a long time. Like they kept up the shtick for yeah, as long as like, you know, they could. But it's like some people might see it as tacky, but I find it to be pretty funny. So I'm not gonna put them in A tier. I am gonna put them in B tier though. So yeah, I would if you want a bit more. If you thought ska couldn't get any sillier, this is the silliest thing you'll ever see. But I would still recommend it. Like unironically, I would actually like recommend some of these songs. It's definitely less embarrassing, at least in my opinion, than what happened with Avril Lavigne. Holy shit. So, okay, this one is also weird, because I did also technically see Avril Lavigne live at We Were Young in 2022. Problem is that it wasn't very good. Like, as a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure it was the most infamous show that night, and nobody, like, there were a lot of problems with the Avril Lavigne show at We Were Young. And I was there, people. I wasn't up in the, you know, stage. I was actually sitting down eating, but boy oh boy was it really bad. And well, let's just say that a lot of the music by Avril Lavigne I just find to be very misguided, to put it in a good term. Like, because they tried marketing her as like the pop punk chick, the, you know, the post grunge chick, the, you know, bubble pop chick. Like, they did not know what direction. Like, she probably didn't know what direction she wanted to go. Like, I don't know. Does she make me want to puke out? No. But I'm still gonna put a lot of her stuff in. Okay. Let's Go is definitely her best record, though. That her first, you know, from 2002, I will admit, is decent enough. Okay. Because of that, I'm not gonna completely shit on her work. I'll put her in a C tier, but just keep in mind, there's some stuff that like isn't particularly great from Avril Lavigne. That's all I've got to say. That being said, I mean, she's at least not boring. Unlike The Cab. The Cab is so boring. So boring. And that's embarrassing, because they are supposed to be pop punk. But their music is so much slower compared to any other band on this list, and because of that, it actually embarrassed me. Like, it actually bored me to tears so much. And honestly, that's a crime for pop punk. I'm putting them in F tier because of that. If you make me bored, no. And oh no, the next few bands, they're gonna be pretty bad too. But yeah, no, The Cab. It's funny, because didn't A Day to Remember, like, cover The Cab? Like, because they were the ones who did Over My Head, right? Or no, that was The Fray. Never mind. Okay. But even then, The Cab, I just felt like, yeah, they just didn't really do much with their sound, right? Let me double check. Yeah, I have Spotify pulled up on my headphones just so that I can double check. Yeah, this is so... Yeah. Yeah, this is clearly trying to, like, run off the coattails of, like, All Time Low. Like, so, yeah, no, I'm sorry, but The Cab is not very good. F tier. Which, speaking of F tiers, the Click 5. Okay. I have a personal history with this band. So, I have a few I have a few cousins that are, like, you know, several years older than me. They're the reason why I have, like, the music taste that I have, and I thank them for that. Unfortunately, that also means that they had certain like music tastes that were kind of not very good and are, you know, very, very mid 2000s, but in the worst way. You know, whereas back in 2005, a band like Fall Out Boy or Paramore have made iconic, you know, emo pop punk hybrid albums that have stood the test of time. The Click 5 is a band that, you know, was around in 2005 and was only made for 2005. F tier. This is the definition of a band that, frankly, is so dated as far as production's concerned and as far as, like, you know, vocal delivery. Like, this is so, like, this is an example of a band that is a time capsule band, but in the worst ways possible. It is so of that era, and it does not hold up at all. It's so bad. The production's so bad. You have no idea how bad this album, like that first album, is. And it didn't help that, like, they were on the Hannah Montana soundtrack. So you know what I had to listen to? Like, you know, every other car ride. Pat Princess, hold my hand. Pat Princess, on not there. I hate that song so much. I have a burning passion against that song in particular. And it wasn't even a single. That wasn't even a main single by theirs. It was just some random song that, like, my cousins fucking loved for whatever reason. I don't know why. I don't know why. That song has haunted me for years, and I hate it. I hate it so much. It's so bad. So yeah, no, this no. Bad Click 5. Bad. Which, well, speaking of bad, The Fold. F tier automatically because they are also a Christian rock band. So automatically I'm putting them in F, but there's also another problem. They're also boring, like The Cab. Boring like vanilla wafers. There is zero substance with any of the lyrics that they've had on their normal stuff. And, well, except for a weirdly, blatantly sexist song that they have on their debut? Like, what the fuck was up with that? Jesus. Yeah, no, fuck you guys for that. So yeah, no, just boring vanilla wafers, you know, lyrics, painfully generic songs, a very blatantly sexist song that is somewhat, you know, has decent airplay. And then there's the worst problem here. This is what, like, put this over the edge for me. So, if you guys remember 2 years ago, I did a podcast episode talking about Lego. And, I did it with Goldie. And he brought up that, well, he's someone who really cannot stand Ninjago. He doesn't get the appeal and all that fun stuff. And truth be told, I somewhat agree with him in some of those respects. Because, you know, especially the show was fucking lame. Like, compared to everything else that was airing on, like, Cartoon Network at the time, it's definitely on the lower echelons. These guys did the theme song of that show. So, well, yeah, no, they're going in cringe. Again, yeah, no, a band that has made a blatantly sexist song telling women to just shut up and just, you know, love me, made a song for a show for fucking 7-year-olds. Pop punk at its finest, ladies and gentlemen. So, God, I hate this genre sometimes. Okay. Let's move on. Okay, Forever the Sickest Kids. I don't actually fully remember this. I'm gonna take some time to listen to a little bit of the music. I remember being okay, but let me double check. Okay, Jonathan Cook is leaked. I was about to say, why does this sound like Rodney Radke? Because that was concerning me. Oh, I remember why this was popular. Because this was on the Diary of a Wimpy Kid soundtrack. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That's a problem right there, if you ask me. Oh, boy. Okay, I'm shit talking, but yeah, I honestly, yeah, I don't like this guy's vocals either. It reminds me too much of Ronnie Radke, and that's a bad sign right there. That being said, let me make sure that there's no trouble history, cause well, please for the love of God. No, okay. Yeah, I'm gonna put this in C tier. They're not terrible. Again, that's just a big common problem with pop punk is that a lot of it is very average, music when you boil it down. And should be pretty obvious because of where I've been placing all these bands is, most of them have just been kind of in the middle. So, and to be fair, I might change some of the placements, but yeah, this is yeah. All right, next up, Fountains of Wayne. Rest in peace, the lead singer, because unfortunately he did die from COVID. Unfortunately, he did die from that, which is pretty unfortunate. Like, honestly, COVID was a huge fucking problem. Thankfully, we're no longer in the pandemic. Unfortunately, we still have a lot of troubles to deal with post-pandemic, but let's not get into that. But if I'm gonna be honest, this is another band that I just feel like was very, very tacky. Like, like they're not, I don't know, just obviously their most popular song was Stacy's Mom, but I don't know. I've always kind of cringed at songs like that because it's like it's literally like, oh, your mom's hot, the song, which I cringe at that. I don't talk like. To be fair, not all their music's like that. It's just the one song. But oh my god. I cringe every time. So I don't know. Again, there's worse bands out there. Or yeah, there's worse bands. But yeah, C tier. Whatever. All right. Hey Monday. So this is a band that was, I think, brought up through Pete Wentz's record label, Decadence, if I'm not mistaken. And well, yep, those band members, they're all like teenagers. They're like between the ages of 14 and 17, if I'm not mistaken. You can probably see where the problem is well, let's just say that like teen rock stars or just teen, music stars typically tend to have very troubled careers. I mean, it should be pretty telling, especially since they only have one album, like, ever. They've only ever had one album that they've made, which, yeah, that's a bad sign right there. And yeah, and if I'm gonna be honest, I'm trying not to give too much shit, because at the end of the day, you know, this album was, made by teenagers. And, well, truth be told, I'm gonna be honest with this right now. Obviously, I had my music project, Teenage Robots. I've had that project since I was in high school. And, like, I would have killed for having, like, a rock career. Like, I would have fucking killed for something like that. And while, obviously that didn't end up happening, at the end of the day, it's like, part of me is kind of glad that, I didn't have my YouTube or my Twitch or my, music career blow up into popularity at someone at a young age. And yeah, you can pretty much tell that, like, they didn't necessarily want to be in, like, I saw the music videos, they didn't want to be there. So it's like, again, I'm not gonna give them too much shit, but like, this is definitely a D tier project. What's also, I guess, the standing legacy of this particular band is that, like, the lead singer appeared in the music video for America's Sweethearts by Fall Out Boy. So that's a random, factoid trivia. And what makes that one even funnier is that, like, that music video, I mean, you can probably tell it's late 2000 production, but it's not, like, super dated, except for the lead singer's haircut from that. You can tell she had seen hair from 2009 in that music video. So, thanks for dating and, otherwise okay music video. I mean, I love America's Sweethearts as, like, a song. It's just never really was my favorite, music videos. But yeah, no, as far as, like, that band's concerned, it's a bit rocky. So, again, not the worst. There's worse pop punk bands, as you can see, but yeah. And now we've got ourselves, okay, Less Than Jake. Is it the last ska? No, there's a few more ska bands on here. Yeah, there's another ska band. And, I mean, they are okay. Like, I'm gonna put them in B tier. I will definitely say that as far as ska is concerned, like the ska punk movement, they're definitely one of the better ones. Which, I know, I've been giving a lot of praise for ska, but that's partially because all the other ones were really, 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 really bad, and I don't want to talk about them. But yeah, no, like, as far as Less Than Jake is concerned, I do feel like, okay, they're better than Real Big Fish. I do think that's for sure. Actually, yeah, they're better than Real Big Fish. As a matter of fact, like, their music, I do feel like fits in with not only that ska movement, but also stands up with the pop punk of the 2000s. Like, it's definitely, I'd say, the most accessible of, like, that era. Because, like, if I'm going to be honest, some of the songs did kind of remind me of Newfound Glory songs. Even though that, like, not only did I rank this higher, but also Less Than Jake is older than Newfound Glory. But yeah, no, like, at least in my opinion, Less Than Jake, if you want like an entry level ska band, this is probably your best bet, because this is the band that, honestly, I feel like is the most pop punky of that scene. Like, it's the most accessible, I feel like. So go check them out. All right, lit, or as I call them, not so lit. Yeah, I didn't care for this. I know they have the one song where it's like, please tell me why, but they're a one-hit wonder. I mean, yeah, they're like a one-hit wonder band. that only had that one big song. Are there there's just way better examples of like bands with better like, you know, one hits, that it's just like, I don't know, man. Like, again, that one song is fine, but everything else you can pretty much skip. Unfortunately, that's not what I can say much about this next band, Lustra, a one-hit wonder that was only made for a movie and is pretty dated. This is another F tier. They did Scotty Doesn't Know, which is a pretty milquetoast mid-2000s pop punk song. Like, it is so bad. I don't even know how to describe it. It just feels like, you know, very lazy singing. Yeah, lazy singing. Less than basic chord progression for like a pop punk song. And just a lack of identity. And that's what this band has. Like, a very, very, very big lack of identity as far as like a pop punk band is concerned. And here's the thing. All these other bands, even the ones that are like in B and C tier, even if like, you know, I consider them average, they still have like, you know, a distinct thing about each in one of these bands. You know, like, you know, Yellowcard has the they have like, you know, the viola, you know, instrumentals. With Weezer, they have that sort of, you know, quirky sort of, you know, not extremely nerdy, but just still kind of nerdy enough like tone. Say Anything, basically just theater kid music. Pot Mulligan, more of a, you know, up and freshened up, you know, emo pop punk hybrid music. Motion Seeds soundtrack, you know, more of electronic beats added into their music. Hell, even bands that like are in the D tier, like, you know, Sublime. Again, I'll shit on them for them basically just being really bad stoner music, but it's still an identity. They're a stoner band. Like, you know, or, you know, Sleeping with Sirens with the post-hardcore that they were doing. And of course, even Blink-182, as much as I'm giving them now, you know, they have that sort of brand of like not taking themselves super seriously, even if I think it's kind of cringy. Like, it's still something. Lustra just straight up don't have that. They're just a one-hit wonder that, well, wasn't even really that good to begin with. So, big L. L for Lustra. Yeah, L stands for Lustra from now on. So yeah, no, it's not good. So, all right. Well, speaking of not good, Magnolia Park. Okay, TikTok. I swear to God, don't get pissed off with me on this one. But I was really not I was not jiving with these guys whenever I was listening to them. Granted, they are not the worst band. I would take them over Lustra for sure. That still doesn't make them good because I don't know. It's just, as far as like this wave of pop punk is concerned, it honestly just feels more pretentious. But in that sort of like, you know, edgelord pretentiousness that I can't stand. You know, like, for example, like, I call out TikTok on this one because that's what this feels like. This just feels like a TikTok band. You know, TikTok alternative, as I'm gonna coin it now. Basically, you know, like, you know, TikTok like videos where it's like, you know, where, you know, it's like, you know, they try to act like all edgy and like shit. Like, I hate that shit so much. Like, you know, like where they try to act like super, you know, death metal, and I can't stand that shit. I actually can't stand that shit. They basically are the embodiment of like, you know, a lot of that. Granted, after listening to their like deep cuts, it's not all like that. I will give them credit. They do general pop punk stuff that's good enough in that regard. I just cannot stand the whole, you know, like the, you know, wannabe death metal pretentiousness that I can't stand that shit. So yeah, these guys are teetering, but I will give them the benefit of the doubt, and I will give them a D. And oh, also, here's another thing. I also saw these guys live because they were out when we were young last year, and they were not good. Again, they're a band that kind of, they're not just a pop punk band. They also combine stuff with like nu metal, at least a little bit, and it's just not a very good mix, like at all. So yeah, I would definitely skip this band for sure. Like, again, I mean, yeah, they're not in the top 10 worst bands that we have right now, unless, oh wait, are they? Hold on, let me double check. No, yeah, they're not in the top 10 worst, but they're not very good. All right, next up, Midtown, which that's a very, very accurate name because this is very mid. So, again, they're one of those like mid 2000s pop punk bands that kind of popped up, and yeah, not like, they're not awful, but there's just so many better bands. And again, that's part of the problem is that like, and again, I might lower and raise some of these bands. Don't worry. It's just what I'm feeling right now is, actually, you know what? I'm going to raise some bands. So I'm going to raise a few bands. I'm going to raise Academy Is. I'm going to raise All American Rejects. Hot Mulligan. Motion City Soundtrack. The Offspring. Yellow Card. And then I'm going to raise Sum 41, but barely. Emperor Pacific. And we'll give Plain White Tees the benefit of the doubt. Okay, there we go. Oh, and then S tiers. Okay, fuck it. Alkaline Trio, all time low. And that'll be it for now. All right. So yeah, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, Midtown. Yeah, Midtown. I don't know. They're just kind of average, at least as far as I'm concerned. They're not a band that like fully stands out, at least in my opinion. So, a band that does stand out is the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. Yeah, fucking ska music, I swear to God. Okay. Yeah, okay, okay, and I'm gonna throw in Muscle Plug in this one as well. I'm gonna put both of these in seats here as well. These are very, very, very of their era. Mighty Mighty Boss Tones just fully embraces the zoot suits and the saxophones. I was not joking whenever, like, I was partially joking whenever I made that statement, but like they did it but unironically. So I don't know. This is a case where it's like, it's goofy. Okay, I know I put Aquabats like high and like it's goofy, but like I can get with the joke. I feel like with Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, it's goofy, but it's not like, you know, over the top goofy to where it's like, okay, this is pretty funny. It's just goofy, which is not a bad thing. It's just it, and also admittedly, like, again, they're one of those bands where it's like they're more focused on like just being a ska band or even just a straight up jazz band rather than just, you know, making pop punk. Though they're single, I will say they're definitely more of a singles band. Check out the singles if you haven't. But yeah, same thing with Mustard Plug. If I'm gonna be honest, just without the zoot suits, or the suspenders or anything like that. They're just more, you know, vanilla looking. Also, their album covers mostly, they are not Kino. They are not cool. I really just used that fucking word. God damn it. I hate lingo. But okay, whatever. Mustard Plug, again, they're more of a singles band. Dig out their singles. But like a lot of the stuff from their deep cuts are hit or miss. So that's my caution as far as Mustard Plug is concerned. So that's what I would advise. MXPX, F, and I'm already gonna do it for Reliant K as well. F. They're both Christian pop punk. You guys already know. I already said at the beginning. I am not gonna give credit where credit is due. And besides, Reliant K, even if they weren't a Christian band, they would still be lame. They're hella lame. So, no thank you. And yeah, MXPX is just one of those bands that just tried a bit too hard. They're basically just Christian Blink-182. So, yeah, you can already see the problem there. And again, Reliant K, basically just a Christian Taking Back Sunday. Even though I think they're technically older than Taking Back Sunday, but whatever. They're like, you get the point. I'm not going to give a shit. So, L in my book. Alright, Neck Deep. Okay, admittedly, these last several examples that we have coming up, I might have to, like, you know, bring out the, or not the last bands, but like these next couple of ones. I might need to remind myself on exactly what they are. If I'm not mistaken, Neck Deep is a British band, if I'm not mistaken. So, but yeah, they have fucking 3 million listeners on Spotify. I was obligated to put them on this tier list. So, but yeah, let me just double check what their vibe is about. Okay, that's not the best example. Okay, yeah, they're Welsh. Yeah, let me double check. Okay, very boys like girls like, funny enough. Okay. Okay. Wait, are they also an emo band? Hold on. Okay, this is... Okay, I've never heard of Neck Deep, so I don't... Okay, this is more pop punk here. I mean, this is not bad, like, so... Definitely more acoustic based. Okay. You know what? I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give them a B tier. It's actually better than I thought they were going to be. So, yeah. Again, they're kind of like... It's kind of like a boys like girls style of pop punk. So, if that's up your alley, Neck Deep, pretty decent in that regard. So yeah. Something corporate. D tier. Another band. Oh yeah, D tier. There's another band I saw live when we were young. They weren't the worst. I mean, they were much better. I guess they were much better live. They were a much better live performance than Magnolia Park. But like, I don't know. The music just doesn't really do it for me. It's very. I don't know how to describe it. Although, let me double check to make sure that like I'm not confusing with this with another band. I know I definitely saw them live though, and it wasn't really. Oh yeah, that's right. Their music's very proto Jonas Brothers, like, so yeah, that's kind of the problem. Is that they like I know they're older than Jonas Brothers, but they remind me too much of like the worst aspects of Jonas Brothers. So no thanks. Yeah, I know I put them. I know I put Jonas Brothers in C tier. Um, well, I guess by that logic, then fine. I'll put them in C tier. Fine. If I put Jonas Brothers up here, then I might as well put them up here. But yeah, they're very, very, very similar to that, which is uncanny to say the least. So I guess that's at least worth something. All right, let's move on to SR71, which this is definitely a D tier band. Not technically a one-hit wonder, but like, yeah, this is a band that just didn't really know what they wanted to do, because they also tried doing post-grunge, and yeah, it just didn't really work out as much as it could have. I don't know. It's kind of hard to do, pop punk mixing in with grunge or post grunge, because of just the contradictory tones of pretty much all three of those genres together. So it's just kind of hard to pull something like that off. Again, not like I try to give these bands the benefit of the doubt, because again, I'm not like the biggest like pop punk aficionado, but I don't know, like, it's just, Alright, next up, we've got State Champs, which is another band that, frankly, I don't remember what they sounded like, so I'm gonna have to pull them up. They have 800,000 listeners on Spotify. So okay, give me. Okay. Yeah, it's very poppy with this. I'll put them in C tier for now. So yeah, like, as far as I'm concerned, if you want more of a pop influence, then State Champs is your best bet. But on that, well, there you go. Okay, next up, we've got, like, I don't really have anything else to say. Again, a lot of these bands, they do their own things, but like a lot of them end up still kind of being very similar to other bands. I honestly would say the best comparison would be like late era All Time Low for State Champs. So yeah, because this sounds like late era All Time Low, which, take that for what you will. So yeah, that's all I gotta say about them. All right, the story so far. Oh, they just barely have 1 million, and they also just released a new album, so that's definitely getting them a lot of attention right now. Yeah, definitely a more post-hardcore influenced pop punk for sure. Yeah, this is honestly, again, you're talking to someone who likes more emo and post-hardcore influenced stuff. So this is definitely more up my jam as far as like, you know, musically. So yeah, I'm gonna give them, for now, I'll give them the B tier. Because again, that post-hardcore helps me personally as far as like, you know, sonically making sense. Well, okay, let me phrase that. I like it whenever like, you know, pop punk bands add in like a post-hardcore influence. That's probably like if you want like a pretty easy win to get me over, that's definitely something to consider. Because yeah, I do think that like having that post-hardcore influence just kind of makes the music a bit more like sonically interesting. So all right, next up we've got Taco Cat, which yeah, I've already heard this. I feel bad for these gals cuz like again, I don't hate this band. Um Unfortunately though, it just kind of leans more into the kind of, you know, quirkiness that I am not particularly the biggest fan of. Thankfully, this doesn't make me cringe. Um and you know, they're just doing their own thing. And I do respect that. It just feels more, it's not misguided. It's just more not really my thing. Though I do respect what they like, you know, work on here. It's a bit more laid back, more folk influenced, like, you know, pop punk. Not like, you know, Midwest emo, but just kind of more, you know, like just straight up folk influenced pop punk. Which, God, that is so loud. Which, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, I can respect. So yeah, I'll put them in the C tier. And you know who else I'm also going to put in the C tier? Water parks. They're fine. Like, I know they have a very, very, very passionate fan base, and they're probably going to be very upset that I put them in C tier. But Water Parks is like a weird band. Because, again, a lot of bands, like in the 2010s, I feel like were heavily inspired by, like, you know, All Time Low and Mayday Parade. And yeah, this is just kind of another example of a band like that. And truth be told, as far as their early stuff is concerned, I did prefer it over kind of what they started doing around like 2020 onwards, where they went more into a straight pop route. Again, it's just not really like a thing that's entirely my cup of tea, but I do at least understand where, like, you know, they got their fans. And truth be told, if I'm gonna be honest, a part of me says that they're no, they're better than Jonas Brothers, I guess. But again, it's not really music I would personally listen to quite a bit. It's yeah, it's just not really like, you know, entirely my lane. Especially since, you know, it's way more pop influenced than it is like, you know, pop punk. That's just me. All right, waves, as I call them, because they have two V's instead of just one. So it's waves or waves. So, they were more like indie like influence, right? Let me double check. Yeah. Or like even yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, but like I don't know. Yeah, okay, this is more like yeah, psychedelic, I guess, influenced. It's just a weird mix. Yeah. Okay, I will give them the benefit of the doubt, and I will give them a C tier. I know a lot of bands are in C tier. I know. Don't worry. I might raise some of these. I might lower these. Don't worry. But this is a weird combination. Yeah, this is definitely like very like psychedelic or even like prog influenced, which is definitely an interesting combination. Again, I'm listening to it through my headphones for those who are confused. Yeah, it's not bad. It's just a very interesting and weird combination for pop punk because you don't typically think of like psychedelic when you think of pop punk. So, I mean, I will give them credit. At least they did something different because, you know, how many pop punk bands can you think that. Hey, how many psychedelic pop punk bands can you think of? Well, not many. So, I will give them that. Um, but again, it's I don't know if it'd be something that's like particularly my thing, but you know how it goes. Oh boy, We the Kings. Another band like Lustra, where they're a one-hit wonder for a song of the 2000s that was only made for the 2000s. In this case, Check Yes Juliet, which I will admit is a better single than like Scotty Doesn't Know. I really don't like Scotty Doesn't Know. It's just blatantly bad. But that's where the differences end. They're very similar as far as, you know, career paths went down, except instead of the mid 2000s, it's the late 2000s. Also, by the way, that's something I've also noticed about when it comes to pop punk music videos. Either a lot of pop punk music videos are they're either like the band in high school doing some hijinks, the band outside of like some neighborhood doing hijinks, like just walking around, or they're partying at someone's house late at night. That right there is like the formula for like pop punk bands as far as like music videos are concerned. So yeah, but yeah, I'm sorry, but like they're one hit wonder, and while that song is better than most other songs, I still ultimately have to put them in the F tier because one song does not carry an entire band. So I hate to do that to them, but it's the truth. So take it or leave it. All right, the Wonder Years. I'll put them in C tier. Again, they do a more folksy sort of inspired sound. And again, while that's not entirely like my thing, I can at least like understand why people like it. It's just not really anything that I would say was like ever something huge for me personally. So, but yeah, that's kind of what the Wonder Years did, is that yeah, they just kind of did that more folksy pop punk. So, if that's your jam along with Taco Cat, there you go. And then last but not least, You Me at 6. Well, it's funny enough, we ended up things on a positive note because I'm going to put this in the B tier. I would definitely say that their best album, funny enough, would be their second album, aka I think the first rock album to come out of the 2010s, if I'm not mistaken. This came out very early in like 2010. Yeah, January 12th, 2010. Damn. Um yeah, especially with that lead single of theirs. Yeah, like this band has a bit more spice to them. Yeah, like I'm re-listening to The Consequence right now. It's a really solid like album opener for for their second album, Hold Me Down. And again, like I will definitely say that like I'm much more familiar with like their earlier material as opposed to their later. But I will defend their first three albums for sure. Yeah, Take Off Your Colors, Hold Me Down, and Sinners Never Sleep. I do think that like that's the best of their material. So yeah, if you want like, a really solid like late 2000s or early 2010s pop punk band that like isn't, all time low or Mayday Parade, they're a good choice as well. So, and also I think they're British as well, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, no, we somehow were able to get the tier list done in the same amount of time that we do a Caspian Awards episode. So yeah, and that's everything. Yeah, that's everything on the list. So I'm not forgetting anyone, right? I'm not forgetting any major pop punk bands on the list, right? I got everyone. Mm-hmm. Surely there isn't one particular band that wasn't highly influential that I would have forgotten that is considered one of the best pop punk bands, if not one of the best bands of all time. Right? You didn't think I'd forget, now did you? Well, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, Green Day has entered the chat. It should not be surprising that it's S tier. I find Green Day to be a much superior band over Blink-182 in pretty much every single regard. And I do still consider them to be one of the best, like one of my personal favorites. Even though I will admit, I wouldn't. They're still one of my favorites. I don't know if I'd say they're still my favorite band. Again, my top favorites flip flop all the fucking time. But yeah, as far as pop punk is concerned, Green Day is the gold standard. They basically were the ones that popularized it. Even though technically, you can technically say that the Ramones was the first pop punk band, at least on a technical level. Green Day was definitely the first band to really set the stage for what pop punk would be in the next 3.5 decades. Because if it weren't for Green Day, about half these bands wouldn't even exist. Most of these bands probably wouldn't even exist. So they, suffice to say, are a very, very influential band. And, well, for good reason, because all their albums are fucking amazing. Like, like Dookie, Insomniac, Nimrod, Warning, American Idiot, 21st Century Breakdown, Revolution Radio, Saviors, all phenomenal records. And I would highly recommend you guys check out any of the albums I just listed above. Hell, even Kerplunk and 1039 Smooth Out Slappy Hours for those who want some of their early, just straight up punk records. Because they are a punk band as well. They're not just pop punk. So, of course, I had to put them in S tier. But as far as like everything else, I will admit, like, pop punk is a pretty mixed genre. Like, it's not like the worst genre that we've covered here. It's just admittedly, I'm not like as much of a pop punk fan overall. I still respect the genre, especially considering that like so many of my favorite bands are pop punk bands. So of course I'm gonna give the genre at least a little bit of due diligence. Um, it's just I guess I'm someone who is a bit more of a emo or a post-hardcore person, or shit, even a little bit of like, new metal, although admittedly that new metal tier list was so goddamn tedious after a while. Oh my god, so many F tiers. Trust me, that was awful. But yeah, and also truth be told, like even some of the bands that are in C tiers, I think I might be giving them a bit too much shit. Like, for example, The Used. I'm gonna squeeze them up into B tier. Again, I know most people don't particularly like their, later stuff, but they still have some gems hidden here and there. So yeah, like at the end of the day, I do think that like this is probably, yeah, like this is at least how I personally feel about, all the bands that are on here. And yeah, I'd say that's about all I gotta really say is that pop punk has a pretty big legacy. And no matter like, what some random guy on the internet like myself thinks, what matters is that, pop punk is here to stay and it will continue to stay. And there's going to be new acts that will try the sound out, and some will succeed, others will fail, but no matter what, at the end of the day, it is still, a hugely popular genre that is going to stand the test of time. So, yeah, that's all I got to really, say if I'm going to be honest. But yeah, let me check to see if there's any other bands I could raise. I'd say this is a pretty good list. At least how I'm feeling currently. So, again, I know there's like more bands that I have more negative feelings towards than positive. But again, that's not to discount like the good. So, but yeah, I'd say that's about all I gotta really say. And even the C tier is not technically like a bad tier. Like I know there's a lot of them in C tiers, like in the C tier. Don't let that discourage you. This is still like some of these bands. Admittedly, some of this is partially unfamiliarity. But this is how I'm feeling currently. I'll definitely see if I'll be updating this list at some point in the future, because, well, I like updating these lists. And yeah. And again, you guys can help update this list too. If there's a pop punk band that you feel like I've missed, feel free to let me know. Either through DMs on Twitch or Discord, and I'll make sure to add it whenever I can. But that being said, that was the pop punk tier list. I hope you guys did enjoy this. If you guys did and you're new to the channel, if you're watching this on Twitch, make sure to hit that follow button down below and turn on the bell icon so you'll be notified exactly when I'll be streaming. While you guys are at it, make sure to check out the links down below as well, specifically the Discord and the SoundCloud and the Humble Bundle affiliation link. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to hit the follow button, or make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell icon so that you'll be notified exactly when I'm streaming. And of course, check out the links down below as well. If you're watching this on Twitch and if you haven't already, you can make sure to hit that subscribe button to directly support me. If you can't necessarily do that, that's completely fine. I'm just glad that you guys took time to watch this. But regardless of all that, though, make sure to share the stream. Make sure to share the stream to other people as well, and continue to be awesome people in the process. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. But until then, have a good night, guys. Bye.